Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening around the world. My name is Theresa Moulton. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Change Management Review, and I'm here with my colleague, Brian Gorman, who's the managing editor of the Change Management Review and the founder of TransformingLives.coach. We are very excited to share with you some of the details around the Change Management Consulting Skills Certificate program that we've been teaching for about a year. And really interested in seeing, what your thoughts are. Okay, next slide. So we put together our objectives, and there's a few here. We basically are going to give you the case for change for this course. So why is this course important to you as a change practitioner? We're going to talk about the logistics. We'll talk about the content in big chunks. And then hopefully you'll be able to determine by the end of this presentation whether this certificate program is right for you. Okay, the case for the course is really interesting because most change methodologies are based on the sound understanding of the human dynamics of change. However, they also share identifiable gaps that leave major risks unaddressed and place critical change initiatives in jeopardy. So for example, what is the intent of the change? What demand is there for the change? What about change saturation? How do you deal with the capacity that is or isn't there for the change? What about enrollment? How do you get people engaged for the change? And then engagement, how do you engage people in the right type of relationship with the program and with you as a change practitioner? The other thing that's important to note is that we look at consulting and coaching competencies. So being a skilled technician is really necessary, and we think that most methodologies today make you really good technicians, but they don't necessarily give you the skills that you need in order to build strong relationships, a real trusted relationship like an advisor. And so what we've done in this course is really make sure that we're dealing with the skills that you need to complement any methodology in order to be a more powerful practitioner. So who's this course for? It's for change practitioners, whether you're internal or external, and it's methodology agnostic. So if you are ProSci certified, it works with that. If you are IMA certified, it works with that. Or if you have a homegrown methodology, it works with that, because we're going to be focusing a lot on the consulting skills around building trusted advisor relationships on different specific topics that challenge change practitioners in implementing successful work. So the course framework is basically one full day where we get you all greased up and ready to go with the skills that we're going to cover, and also we start in on some of the important coursework. Brian's going to go over that in a minute. And then we have 3 half-day sessions each week. And at the end of this, people feel like they have really improved their skill set. And one of the main benefits of this program is that the level of experience in the room and the conversations that are had in the room are very stimulating to everyone. So it's a lot of learning from your peers as well as learning from the content in the course. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian to talk about the what and the course curriculum and the expectations.
So our objectives for the course are, first of all, to provide you with understanding and skills necessary to address significant gaps in most change management methodologies. And I'll be walking through what those gaps are and the kinds of things we'll be covering in just a moment. To provide you with an understanding and the skills necessary to strengthen your success in your working relationships with your clients. That is both as a consultant, but also bringing in a coach approach. And again, I'll define that in just a moment. What's really important about the course is, yes, there's content, but this is not a course where you're going to sit and take notes and take notes and take notes and take notes, and Terry and I are going to talk and talk and talk and talk. This really is a very interactive curriculum. Every topic we cover, there are either going to be demonstrations or breakouts and report backs and collaboration with your peers, so that it becomes a very practical course on how do you take what you're learning today back into the workplace tomorrow. So session 1, which is March 1st, is 9 to 5. We will take an hour break for lunch. It begins with welcome and introductions. We walk through what the curriculum is in a little more detail and set expectations for the course, find out what you are expecting from the course so that we can make sure that we're delivering what you're looking for. One of the things that is there in many change management approaches, but is very much in many cases implicit, are a set of principles. And so from our own experience and doing some research, Terry and I have identified a set of principles that are important to being successful as a change practitioner. Principles like be of service, but don't be servile. And we'll dive into that in a few minutes. Trust and be trusted. How do you build trust? That is the foundation of being a successful change practitioner. Many of the principles that we introduce here become more in-depth topics for the curriculum. We then move into contracting. This is not the business contract, if you will, that you might establish as an external contractor with your client. This is the social contract. How do you establish that social contract in a very explicit way so that you are both clear about what you're delivering, what you need from the other in order to be successful? From there, we move into trust and be trusted. For those of you who know the work of Judith Glasser, Judith did a lot of work on what is known as conversational intelligence. And a piece of that work is the neuroscience of trust. So we'll be giving you Judith's model on how to build trust, how to be trusted, but we'll also be working with you on how do you bring this model into your relationships with your clients, with your peers, and quite frankly, how can you bring this model into any relationship that you have? We all encounter difficult situations. And I know I do a lot of work now as a coach. A lot of people spend a lot of time avoiding tough conversations. And yet tough conversations are at the heart of the work that we do, because sponsors, no matter how much we tell them what they should be doing, they don't do it. There are those conflicts between project management teams and change management teams. There can be conflicts even on the change management team itself. So how do you have those tough conversations that are essential to bringing about the behaviors and the mindsets that are needed to bring the change initiatives to a successful conclusion. We introduce coaching here and the difference between coaching and consulting. And you'll actually begin to learn some of the tools of coaching, a framework for coaching, some of the basics of how do you coach, and when do you coach, and when do you consult? When is the value in coaching? When is the value in consulting? If you're not familiar, the ACMP and the International Coach Federation are actually working to identify how these two professions can collaborate more fully. ICF, the International Coach Federation, did a research project a few years ago that showed that there is real value in bringing coaching and a coaching mindset, a coaching approach into change management practices. So here we begin to introduce you to how you can make that work. And then finally, we all know that even before COVID, even before all of that additional stress of work life from home, with everything else that was going on, even before all of that, change management is one of those professions that can eat you alive. So we spend some time on how you self-manage, how you set and maintain boundaries so that you can be successful in your career and not be eaten up while you're helping your clients be successful. So all of that is day one, folks. That's why it's a full 9 to 5 day. From there, on March 8th, we moved to 8:30 to 12:30. We begin with some of those gaps, and days 2 and 3 really focus on significant gaps in most change management methodologies. So we begin with, what are we really changing? How do you create and align to, and then execute the true intention of the change initiatives that you're working on? How do you ensure that from whatever that team is that determines the intent, to the tens or hundreds, or if you're working on a big global transformation, perhaps thousands, are making decisions day to day on executing the change? How do you ensure that that intent is maintained? From there, we move into the arena of change strategy, change management strategy. If you look at any change methodology, it is structured tactics, it's processes, it's assessments, it's reports, it's deliverables and deliverables and deliverables and deliverables. But what is your strategy for getting from here to there? We spend time on how do you build a change management strategy, and what are some of the ways that a strategy might look. Culture, we all talk about it, yet most methodologies, again, don't give you the tools to actually do something about it. And so we are going to bring you what we call a culture hack, which is a framework by which you can take the culture that you have and shift it to the culture that you need in order for your initiative to be successful. So again, that's day 2. And then day 3, we begin with making a distinction between communication, engagement, and enrollment. And when is each of these important? And how do you do it right? Resistance, again, something we all talk about. Commitment, something we all talk about. we are going to give you some tools to take resistance and leverage it to build commitment. Because resistance and commitment are really two sides of the same coin. If we can address the resistance that people have, they're giving us great information. And in applying that information, delivering back to the workforce, we build commitment. And finally, on day 3, how do you balance change demand and the capacity that the organization has for change? We've all seen it. I know I talk about one of my clients who I was not coaching the organization or guiding the organization through change. I was working with one particular department head. They had a big customer relationship management system that they were rolling out, and then COVID rolled in, and they just kept on rolling like there was no disruption to the workforce with COVID. And guess what, folks? That change didn't work. So how do you manage the demand of change with the capacity in the organization of change? So sessions 2 and 3, those are 6 big holes in most change management initiatives that we're going to help you close. And then session 4, we move back into coaching. We pick up on what we had covered in day 1 and build on one-to-one coaching some more. But then we move into group coaching, and just very briefly, group coaching is learning from one another, learning from observing one another being coached. And a group consists of any set of individuals who have a shared characteristic. So you might be coaching first-time managers. You might be coaching your change agent network practitioners. You might be coaching senior executives in more effective decision making. What are the techniques for group coaching? How do you structure a group? That's what we'll be covering on day 4. And then we move into team coaching. Groups have a shared characteristic. Teams have a shared objective, a shared outcome. So this is really about how do you take that team from where they are to the next level to help support the success of the change initiative. And then we wrap it all up by, okay, how do you bring this all back into your practice as a change professional, and how do you do so successfully? So that's the curriculum. I love this quote because it's something I'm working with for myself and with my clients every day. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. If you're comfortable with what you're doing and how you're doing it, and the level of support you're giving your clients right now, and don't feel like there are any gaps, this is not the course for you. If you're really looking to grow some more into your role as a change practitioner, we welcome you aboard. So we're going to move into some of the questions that were sent into us. And let me stop the share and give the screen over to Terry. So Terry, first question. People, not organizations, are the ones who make a decision to hire a consultant. Many, unfortunately, wait to make the buy decision until the pain is unbearable, or they do not have a choice. Would you share some techniques to help us help potential customers make that buying decision earlier?
Brian, why don't you take this one?
What has worked for me is to really have people reflect on their own experience. So they're taking on a new change initiative. What has been their experience in successfully leading an initiative at that level of challenge, that level of difficulty in the past? If they've been successful, they probably don't need a change practitioner to come in. But if they're not, help them feel the pain that they felt in that past lack of success, and help them know that they can feel the rewards of success with your support. Okay. How do you transform the mindsets of leaders for accepting a new way of working?
Well, one of the best ways to do that, in my opinion, is to coach them. And one of the reasons for that is that coaching really encourages the coachee to think deeply about the answers to the questions. Like Brian had said before, reflect on what their experience is. And also you can ask questions to help them envision what the future might look like, and the what if they were able to do something in a different way. As compared to consulting, where you're providing the expertise, it's more of a tell mode. And that doesn't really help to develop a mindset very much, because the mind actually needs to be curious about what it's thinking about and how it's solving a problem.
For me, absolutely agree with what you said there, Terry. The sort of the shorthand is consulting is about doing, coaching is about the being. Next question. How does change management stand apart from the nature of business today, which is continual and accelerating change? Is there really a way to manage change at this point?
You know, that's an interesting philosophical question, but my answer right now is yes, there is a way to manage change that's constant. And that is by using agile change management techniques. This flow of continuous improvement allows you to really pivot the change management solution that you're providing. You have to do it more in snapshots versus a programmatic approach, but it allows you to move with the change versus basically try to anticipate the change or come behind the change. I think the other part is when you're thinking about real-time change in today's business environment, the changes are still able to be defined. So as long as you can define the change, you can apply change management to it. That's different than how the culture might feel, and some of the overwhelm that might occur with a very dynamic place to work. But in terms of getting work done, I think you can definitely do it in a continuous improvement way using agile techniques, and that gives you the most flexibility.
And I would add on top of that, a piece of what's important is what we're teaching around capacity and demand. Given all of that change, how do you determine what the essential changes are? What do you do about the non-essential ones? And how do you maximize the use of the capacity you have without creating the overload and the burnout?
Well said.
Okay, here's one. Leadership is about change. How do today's leaders ignite and sustain the engagement of their people despite the continuing fear that results from high levels of volatility, uncertainty, disruption, and ambiguity? Fear that they may themselves be experiencing.
It's interesting because it comes back to one of my kind of philosophies on engagement and enrollment, which is you need to show a little vulnerability. You need to come and make yourself accessible to people in a very human way. One of the common researched items on this is empathy, and how important empathy is in actually, it's being touted as the #1 skill set to develop for the rest of this decade and beyond. And I think being able to demonstrate empathy through storytelling and also through a bit of vulnerability, we're not talking about, putting all of your dirty laundry out there, but a 10% vulnerability allows you to really connect with people. And I think that also you can use a coach approach and do more of a group coaching technique in some of the executive listening sessions. And those three things come together to basically help people help themselves, and really, I think, ground yourself in connecting to them.
Last question. Let me know if you want me to take it. What is the best method and measure of change success in each stage of a transformation?
Brian, why don't you take that one?
Okay. I want to step back a little bit first in answering that question, because we don't measure success in terms of what we promised. Leaders get the funding, give the funding to change initiatives very often for significant shifts in mindsets and behaviors, culture of the organization. They talk about, when this change is completed, these are the benefits we're going to realize. And then they turn it over to the execution teams who plan and measure and prioritize. Are we on time? Are we on budget? That's installation. That's not realization. How you measure whether you're actually achieving it, what was promised, you need to set up realization milestones, realization metrics, along with those installation metrics. And your plan from day one needs to not only include, when are we developing the software? When are we testing the software? When are we purchasing the hardware? When are we installing the hardware? All of that installation stuff. But how are we going to shift the mindsets? How are we going to shift the behaviors? How are we going to measure that those changes are taking place? So you need installation metrics, absolutely. But you also need realization metrics along the way.
Brian, can you just give an example of a realization metric so people understand the difference?
Sure. And this example would require the culture hack that we're teaching too, Terry.
Okay.
We're bringing in a new CRM, and part of what we are looking to drive is a change from a star performer in the call center, a star performer culture, to a team collaborative culture where the best available resource works with any client question that comes in. So we can get all the CRM in place, we can get all of the training in place, we can get all of the new performance metrics in place. But if we haven't hacked the culture, if we haven't shifted mindsets and behaviors from, I want my employee of the month face hanging on the wall next month, to, I want us as a team to be more successful than what we've ever been before next month. If you haven't made those realization shifts, you haven't delivered on the promise.
Right. Yeah, another way to think about it is, when the when the company has invested in your change initiative, they have certain goals they want to achieve. Is it cost reduction? Is it revenue increasing? Or is it simplification? And so those are some of the goals that aren't usually measured in terms of implementation projects. So coming back to the business case and really being able to define how this initiative impacts ROI, how it does it make the company more competitive. All that kind of thing is really important because senior executives understand that language, and that's where they are looking to get an ROI on their investment on a major initiative.
Okay, so I'm going to pull the slide deck back up, Terry, so you can wrap us up with how people find out more and sign up.
Okay. Okay, great. So if you've determined that this course is for you, or you want to read more detail about it, you can find it at changemanagementreview.com/consulting skills. And at this point, we're offering the course, as you saw before, in March of this year. And if you have any questions, feel welcome to email me at Theresa@changemanagementreview.com, and we'll happily get right back to you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you all.